Hey everyone, it is great to see you and be a part of this experience with you. This is our a LinkedIn Live. This is being streamed on all kinds of different platforms, and so again, we're excited to be here. Are you excited to be here?
You know I am. I love it.
All right. Well, again, this is Mary Marshall Forrest. She is the president of FPG, Forrest Performance Group, as well as our chief learning officer, and so she's in charge of making sure that all of our training gets is relevant and is applicable to our customers. And of course, I'm Jason Forrest, and let's get right down to it. So, if you're listening to this message right now, then obviously you are here to recruit great salespeople, and and as a head of HR, as a head of sales, or a member of your company's C-suite, you know that there are two problems in business, right? There are sales problems, and then there are all the other problems. At the same time, you also already know that a below average salesperson with a great market, a great product, great circumstances, check this out, will never sell as well as a great salesperson with an uncertain market, uncertain economy, uncertain product, maybe not the lowest prices in the market. And we see that all the time, Mary, right? I mean, how many times have you seen that scenario play true, that we go into an organization and all of a sudden they switch out, that they have some troubled problem, some troubled neighborhood or some troubled product or market, and all of a sudden they put this top great salesperson in there and everything changes. You've seen that 1,000 times, right, Mary?
Yes, what everyone has said is impossible all of a sudden becomes very, very possible. And the same, I mean, we're seeing it right now across so many industries, that people that were really struggling in the past or are brand new at sales, there's a very high percentage of them that are selling crazy amounts, but it's also the market that they've been born into, not necessarily their skill set.
And so a great salesperson is very different, right? And I want everyone to write this down, and that is that there's a direct correlation to, again, what we think about connects to how we feel, and how we feel connects to what we do, and what we do connects to what we receive. And so if you take that great salesperson, then they have different thoughts, they have different actions, they say different things than that average salesperson says, does, and thinks, or that kind of bottom producer says, does, and thinks. And so we all need more of those great salespeople. But here's the catch. Here's the problem. The Wall Street Journal states that there are 800,000 open sales positions right now. 800,000 open sales positions because every company you speak to, they need a stronger salesperson. I mean, and again, I've been working with clients. We've been working with clients now for 15 plus years. And it's amazing, even when companies are going through some sort of recession, or they're going through a hiring freeze, or maybe it's the 2020 coronavirus and they're laying people off, they will never turn away great salespeople. And it's a very interesting thing. But here's the problem, and I want to make sure everyone hears this, and you probably already know this, but some interesting stats that we found out. And that is, right now, there's only a 1-to-1 ratio when it comes to the supply of salespeople out there and the openings of sales jobs. So right now, this is the research. This is crazy. Is that for basically, let me put it this way. Let's say, Mary, that you're looking for a brand new house, and you're looking for a brand new house, and there's one house available. At the same time, there's one person that's looking for a house. So you're looking for a house, and there's only one house available in the market. What's the likelihood? What's the likelihood, Mary, that house that's available is also the house that you want? What are the chances?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
It's not good. But that's the state of the union right now. That's actually what's going on in the economy right now, which I don't know if people realize that, but that was some pretty interesting information that's out there. And so because of that, we need to figure out how do we find those great salespeople? How do we attract those great salespeople? Because it's the same thing as the metaphor of the house. If you are someone that's looking for a home right now and there's only one house available, well, you better get your realtor to go cold walk and go knock on doors and try to convince those homeowners to sell their existing house, even though their house is not listed. That's the situation we're in right now.
Yeah, there's very few real estate agents that want to take on that role. Jason, something I think that's very interesting too, I want to make sure that we share is, yes, there are 800,000 job openings right now, but letting people know that typically there's only about 200,000. So if we were to look at years past and what the trend is, we're typically about 200,000 sales positions that are open at a time, just to give us a basis of comparison of the state that we really are in right now, looking for salespeople. To go from 200,000 is normally what we're competing against in hiring people, to now 800,000. I mean, that's a huge, huge jump.
It is a huge, huge jump. But again, I think it's because everyone knows the truth, and that is that we're in some uncertain times right now. I mean, inflation's high, and the economy is kind of unstable. The markets are unstable, and so everyone knows the same thing, and that is a great salesperson has the ability to sell through uncertain times. A great salesperson is like the insurance policy for uncertain times, and so we all need more of those great salespeople. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get right to it. Enough of all that. We're going to get right to it. And what we want to do is we want to share the pros and cons of 7 different strategies that Mary and I have both used over the last several decades to find and attract great salespeople. We're going to share with you the pros and cons of each one, which will be great. We're going to start with the external job board, and then you can make your own informed decision as far as what's really best for you. And so let's get right to it. Let's talk about the pros of the external job board. All right, so here we go. We're going to go real quick, and we'll kind of have a conversation around each one. And so here's the pros of using an external job board like Indeed or LinkedIn. And so it's a low-cost option. It's a low-cost option, right? You get direct advertising, so you can specifically target the kind of profiles you're looking for, which is really great. So think of it as like, targeting people on Facebook. It's so funny, right, Mary? Is that you and I will have conversations in our home about certain products. Maybe it's a vacation, and all of a sudden, I'm talking about it, but your phone hears me, and now that Cancun trip is showing up on your Facebook feed, right? So it's amazing. But that's the same way that this works. You can actually have direct advertising and really go after those people. You have many options, different job boards that are out there, not just LinkedIn and Indeed, but also sales-specific job boards. You get lots of exposure, and of course, you can customize it as far as the actual message, as far as what you're sharing. So that, again, it's very targeted. But these are the pros. These are the pros, and this has worked for us before. We've used this, right, Mary?
Yes, definitely. And it really, because it's so simple and because it's so low cost, it's where most people start, including where we started. Because if it works for you, it's like the unicorn result, right? You just, hey, let's 10 minutes, put a little ad out there, super easy, have them come in. And if it works, phenomenal, because it's easy and it's quick on the front end as far as preparing for that job ad.
Yeah. And again, my favorite thing about using, again, these external job boards is really probably the advertising functionality, right? Is that like I said earlier, that metaphor with the realtor and how the realtor needs to go and start knocking on doors of homes that you're interested in and convincing them to list their house or sell their house to you. Well, that's really the advantage of an external job board, is that you can do those you can advertise and really target and go after those people that maybe aren't looking for a job right now. They're not looking to make a career change, but again, we can target them and put our opportunity in front of them, which I think is a cool thing. But let's talk about the cons. What are the cons of the external job board?
All right. So the cost and time can add up quickly. So yes, if it works up front, it's the unicorn option, but a lot of times it's going to take quite a bit of time using external job boards to get them in. And it's time consuming to review applicants. You're going to get so many applicants in, which sounds really exciting and fun on the front end. And it is exciting and fun on the front end, until you realize that most of those applicants aren't really made for your job. And that goes to the third point, which it's too easy to apply. So now, in order to bump up how many applicants a job board can say it's sending to people, what they're doing is they're saying, okay, applicants out there, put your resume in, and now just go down and click the button of all the places you want to send it to. which means a lot of these applicants, they haven't reviewed your company. They haven't reviewed your website. They might not have even really read your job ad. They're reading the title, clicking a button, and it is submitting and applying for them. So you're getting way too many people that really aren't interested or aren't qualified. And on top of that, the last con with it is the communication is very limited. So there's a lot of rules and restrictions on how often and how long your replies can be and how many times you can talk to that candidate. So a lot of times you're not even getting all the information that you need up front.
Perfect. Yeah, the big thing I just want everyone to hear with this one, and this is from our own personal experience, is that it can be very inexpensive, but it can also be very costly because you got to make sure that you're watching your ad spend. You got to make sure you're watching your budgets, because if you do have those, that too easy to apply option where those candidates are going through and just like checking boxes, well, the problem is you're paying for all those people. So all those people that are checking that box, you're just paying for it, which can be really, really expensive. So if you choose this route, just make sure that you, again, on a daily basis, make sure you're watching your ad spend, make sure you're watching how much you're spending. So it could start off only costing you, $50 to $100, and then you can end up spending several thousands of dollars, which is what it's cost us in the past, and we end up not even really getting the best candidates in that situation. So just make sure you watch it. All right, so let's talk about the next one. These are the pros of job openings internally, right? So this is your company's at a certain size. This doesn't apply probably if you're a smaller organization, but if you're a big enough organization, then you immediately send out that corporate memo, or you've got an internal job board, and everyone knows about it, and of course you're going to announce the new sales position internally, and you allow people to apply for it. So this is a really good thing. There's a lot of pros to this. It's obviously low to no cost, basically no cost from that standpoint. You also give people an opportunity to advance within the company, which in today's world, Mary, the whole Great Resignation, that's a big thing right now. The Generation Z, I believe it is, Q, I don't know, whatever the most recent generation is. The big thing they say is the reason why they're job hopping so much in the very beginning is because they haven't found their purpose yet, right? So maybe the degree they had in college, they thought it's what they wanted to do until they got in the real world, and then it's just really not their purpose. And so this could be good for them. You have one of these Generation Zs that come in with a marketing emphasis or something, and then all of a sudden, now you can give them purpose, and you can keep them within the organization and turn them into a great salesperson. It's good for employee morale, because again, you're kind of building that internal culture. Existing staff already knows your organization, so the ramp up time should be less. They're already an advocate for your organization. They already know your product and your brand. And then of course, you tap into those employee referrals by asking people internally, hey, I know you do some close work with Brooke, and I know Brooke right now is one of our admins here, but she seems like she'd be great in sales. What do you think, right? And you can also have that kind of tap into those employee referrals, which is a big thing. But what are the cons? What are the cons though, Mary, of this?
Yeah. Well, this one's hard for me to talk about the cons because Jason, that internal job, promoting and moving people within an organization is I think when we have that opportunity that we should take it. It is amazing. It is so good. We've got somebody that's already loyal to the company, to the mission that we know. And if we can help them grow by now helping create them into a salesperson, and that's a place that they want to go and are capable of, that's an amazing, amazing thing to do. So I love that. But there are also always cons. And so one is, just unsure of which applicant to hire. We've got a lot of options, right? Especially on the bigger companies, you've got a lot of people there. So who you're going to pick. Also, when we say no, when we release or reject an internal candidate, it's much more difficult, both for the hiring manager, both for the HR manager, and for the person than it is if it's an external person. One, you are going to see the person the next day, right? And now there's that feeling. So one, it's going to be more difficult. And second, you might lose that employee in their current position. So that's something always to take into consideration. Internal applicants may feel that they're being held back. So other people might think if they're not chosen that, or somebody else is, that they're not being given all the opportunities, and can create resentment among employees. So it's difficult to be in one department. You have all of your peers, you're now promoted and move over into sales. And now are you able to keep that relationship with the other department? Or is there a difference and now as they've moved over? So they can be avoided, but these are real things to think about and how it's going to affect your culture when you do both on both sides, when you decide to promote or move somebody internally, but also when you open it internally and then don't choose somebody. There's definitely culture and morale issues that will happen with both.
I think that's the biggest risk, right? And we've seen that ourselves when when you really care about your employees, you care about your people, and so you've got you have a certain person in a different department, and your internal gut says, I don't know if this person could be a great salesperson. I don't know if they're really the right fit, but but they want to make the money and they want to do the job, and so you just kind of out of the kindness of your own heart, you accept them into the position and you take them through the training program, and it's just not right for them. It's not the right position for them. But again, you wanted to give them a shot, and now you got kind of a weird situation, right? Because you allowed them to take this position, and then they end up failing, and it's hard, right? It's hard to convince them to go back to their previous position if it's even available. And so, yeah, it's something we have to definitely watch out for, and the morale ripple effect impacts of that. So, all right, let's talk about the pros of an in-house HR department. All right. So, I mean, if you have an HR department and you are a company that's big enough, then this is great. I mean, this is one of their roles and responsibilities for them to do, is to go find candidates, and it's human resources, right? So it's about adding more human resources in order to get you to your goals. And so this is their thing, right? And so the pro is that they got strong employer branding. I mean, they clearly know who your organization is. They can speak eloquently and passionately and be advocates for your organization. It's a huge culture fit opportunity for them because they know the culture, right? They know the culture of your organization. Culture is what happens behind the boss's backs. They know the internal norms and what's going on. And so that's a nice thing. They can speak to that and make sure they bring in the right person that improves your culture. It's a time saver, right? It's a time saver to use them versus have a sales manager do it themselves. And you get that more personalized touch. So, I mean, it's good, right? I mean, right, Mary? I mean, using an in-house HR department, there's a lot of pros to do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, most of the time, your HR department is also over and seeing the culture of the company, making sure that the culture that's of the people that are already there is being held, that people feel supported, and so being able to give that on the hiring side and have people feel that and have your brand held to such a high standard when you are recruiting people is huge. I mean, that's really, really a pretty incredible thing, that an opportunity that they have that other people just can't get to that standard.
So it sounds great. So what are the cons? What are the cons of using an in-house HR department?
Yes. Well, the first is, HR does so many different things. There are so many things that fall under the HR department. And so hiring is usually this little sliver of what they do. And then when you talk about the sliver of what they do and all the different types of hiring that they have to know and all the different to fulfill every single position in a company, you just can't be an expert in all of them. You can't. And I think sometimes we set up our HR department to fail in many different ways because they're the catch-all, right? Something else comes up, there's a new project, give it to HR. And when it comes to hiring salespeople, this is a place I think a lot of times we set up our HR department to fail. So it says here, the first one is lack of a warrior mindset. And what we mean by that is the understanding of what it takes to be a top salesperson. Most people don't know this. And so asking an HR department, somebody in HR where that's their specialty, to be able to understand the nuances of what's going to make a salesperson succeed or not succeed, it's not fair. They don't know. And that's okay. So next is it's slow during tougher hiring markets and tougher openings. And why are they slower? Because they have so many other things that they're focused on. It can't solely be hiring that salesperson. And right now, especially with the 800,000 job openings there are, for every salesperson out there, multiple people are going after them. So if your HR representative doesn't have the time to follow up on a daily basis with that person, somebody else somewhere else is. And so their whole rest of their job does not stop just because there's an opening in the sales department. And so it definitely, even right now, especially makes it harder for them. And then the last one is not sales specialized recruiters, but knowledgeable on a general level. So where they're bringing a huge, the huge pro of knowing your company and being able to answer those questions. What they are not able to do is, again, know the sales specialized knowledge and know how to speak to salespeople. So when you think like a salesperson, you can recruit a salesperson and speak their language. You understand what's important to them, what scares them, what is not important to them, and you speak directly to them. Well, an HR representative doesn't necessarily speak that way because they've never had to. And so we throw that on. It's also, they can hurt the probability of a candidate continuing with applying because they're not speaking that direct sales language with them.
I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, that's the biggest con that we got to be careful for, is that it was a different market and there was more kind of demand than supply, right? And you're an organization that's got, tons of great salespeople, plenty of applicants that are coming to you and wanting to work for your organization. I mean, then the in-house HR department's probably okay, right? Because in that case, they're really just kind of screening. They're talking about general knowledge. But if you're not that and you don't have great salespeople that are knocking on your door, well, the problem is that the biggest con I see is that like attracts like, right? So if they have to go kind of convince a person to leave their current organization and come work for you when they're doing really, really well, right? Because remember, you're not looking for a salesperson that's unemployed right now. You're looking for a salesperson that's crushing it. You're looking for a great salesperson. So if a salesperson is unemployed, yeah, that's super easy to convince them to come work for us because they are unemployed. But if they're great, that means they got a book of business, and that means they're successful, and that means they're making a lot of money. And so we need to be able to convince them to leave their current company, leave their backlog, leave their pipeline, and start a whole new pipeline with our organization. So that's probably the biggest con that I see with those in-house HR. But what's the next one? Let's talk about the next one, the next strategy that we can use. All right, hiring events. Holy smokes. This is like probably the favorite thing of Mary Marshall Forrest, is these hiring events. We can talk all day about this. So really quick, the pros: heavy traffic and visibility to your company and department. You make contact with a lot of candidates and you meet briefly in person with them. So let me give you an example of this, right? So let's say you do a hiring event. We've done thousands of these in our life, and you advertise and you get like 30 people to show up to a hiring event, and it only takes you, let's say 90 minutes that you schedule for that hiring event, and you're able to, put people through all kinds of scenarios, all kinds of kind of group interviews, group projects. You'll be able to see people interact with each other, and so very quickly you'll be able to know, who are the alphas, who are the great salespeople, who are the ones that you want to eliminate. And so, I mean, look, if in 90 minutes, if you can see 30 people in 90 minutes versus, spend an hour with 30 people, I mean, that's going to save you, almost 30 hours of your time to basically see this, evaluate the same number of people. So there's a ton of pros for hiring events, and I'm a big fan of if you can do these and you have the ability to do them, you definitely should do these. What are the cons? There's some cons though. What are the cons?
Yeah, there's definitely some cons. One, not all hiring events are created equal. So when it comes to hiring events, because yes, I love them very much, think about, sometimes you are paying to go to somebody else's hiring event. Sometimes you are spending money to create your own hiring event. I am a big fan of having your own hiring event. Not possible for all people, but if it is possible for you, you have a lot more control over that versus paying money to have a booth at another hiring event. So that's an option. So the ROI is not always positive. Both. If you are covering the whole cost of having your own event, that's risky, right? If you don't get the right people in, that's very, very risky. But at the same time, if you're paying money to go to somebody else's. So one thing, Jason, I think we need to discuss is the skill set of different companies. So if you are a marketing company and you have a whole team of people that are marketers, of copywriters, then putting out those external job ads, you're going to have a better return on investment than anybody else out there, because you have full-time marketing persuasive copywriters on your team. So you are going to be better at that. So that's just going to be a stronger point for you. If you're a company that does a lot of your business and you hire salespeople and that work at trade shows, well, a hiring event is in your wheelhouse. Like if you're a trade show company, you know how to do this. You know how to work a booth. You know how to talk to multiple people at one time. You know how to get to the answers that you need within a few minutes. You know how to schedule right there in front of them and continue that conversation. You know how to do that. It's in your wheelhouse. It's easy. And then those hiring events could be better for you. But if your company's never been to a trade show or has only been to one or two, so it's not a muscle that's built, then these can also be detrimental, especially the ones that you're going and paying into. Because if you see most of them, and I've been to so many of these, what happens is you have all of these booths of people, and you have a few people in suits standing behind the booth, looking awkward and uncomfortable, trying to make eye contact with somebody, smile. Do I invite them over? Do I not? Like it's just this very awkward thing. So if you're willing to put all of that beside you, if you're willing to learn and to be, a top booth girl, then I'm telling you, these are going to be really good for you. But most people aren't willing or don't have the time to go learn all of those skill sets to apply it for a 90-minute event that they're going to do twice a year. It's just not, it doesn't make sense. And also it may not attract sales veterans. So, okay. One is that a lot of these events are either hiring events are really geared towards other departments and other jobs. So you're going to get a few salespeople that are there. Or what's going to happen is they're going to be part of a university. And so you're going to have brand new people into the market. Not a bad thing, but it's just understanding that you're looking for new talent, not necessarily veteran talent. So it depends on what you're looking for. And the other is that top salespeople, they want to be wooed, especially right now. And so coming to an event is going to be a little bit harder at this moment. They're going to want to be called. Jason, you were talking about all of the sales veterans that are out there and the people that are looking for jobs versus not looking for jobs. So one, right now with 800,000 job openings, if somebody doesn't have a job, that you need to really look into that. Why not? The second thing I think I don't want us to glide over is if they do have a sales job and they are looking for a new job, that's just as concerning right now. Because as a whole, most salespeople are doing really, really well. What you really want is somebody who's a top talent somewhere, and you want to be able to woo them away from that in order to come work for you. You don't want to take somebody that's part of a sales team of 65 and they're in the bottom 5 looking for another opportunity. We don't want that. We want the top people. And so in order to do that, it just takes a little bit more effort.
I love that. Yeah, the biggest thing I think is that last thing you said too. I think is so critical is that right now in this market, in this economy, again, it's the top people probably aren't going to come to a hiring event. They're very happy. They're very fine doing what they're doing. They're comfortable, and so it just might not be the right economy, the right market to do a hiring event. Again, things change. Might be, or if you're one of those unicorn companies right now, that has some amazing product and amazing offering that people really are just like begging to be a part of, then hiring events actually would work really, really well for you as well. So, and that's out there. I'm sure someone right now is listening, to that has that situation or that opportunity. So, all right. So let's talk about number 5, I believe, right? So number 5 is the low level recruiting agencies. Okay? So these are, let me kind of explain this. So low-level recruiting agency is someone that you're going to outsource to. They're probably going to charge you like $5,000 to maybe $12,000-ish, I would say, is probably the low-level kind of range. And there's a lot of options within that, so it's cheaper than full-service firms. You're only going to probably be charged when the candidate's found. So most of these people are kind of straight commission, which is a really good thing, right? It sounds like a good thing that they're only going to charge you if they find someone. Some of them might be a flat rate, though. I have seen that too. That you pay $3,000 a month for a retainer, and they kind of send you like a ton of resumes, right? And that's more like a sourcer type person, or like a virtual assistant type person. So sometimes you might find that as well. So you might have to pay a reduced amount. It reduces business liability, of course, because now you're outsourcing it to someone else, which is great. And of course, it reduces the time to hire, because again, someone else is doing all that work for you. They're the ones that are going after those people. So I mean, it's an option, right? It's an option for people to do, and there's definitely some pros around it. But Mary, what are the cons around this?
Yeah. So the cons are they are unscreened candidates that they're sending to you. So usually what's happened, the way that they are finding who they're sending over is they're looking at LinkedIn and they're gathering resumes that way. So they're not having any meetings, any interviews one-on-one with the candidates. They're just looking at them based on their resume and sending the resume over to you. So so what does that mean? That means that your hiring manager or your HR manager is now going to have a lot of resumes to review and all of those initial interviews they're doing. So it still is very time consuming. It takes one step away from it. So that's true. It does take one step away, but it still takes a lot of time to go through it yourself. You're unsure of the quality of the positions available. So here's from a candidate's perspective with these recruiting agencies. Typically they're looking at multiple places at once. It's very general in what they're putting out there. So I'm looking for a sales representative, not a lot of specifics behind it. So it doesn't give a lot of certainty to the candidates. So the ones that are applying might not be of the highest quality. You don't have control over their recruiting process. So I think, it's not a collaboration. This is how they're going to go through it. This is how they're looking at resumes and sending them over. And there's not a lot that you can do to change that. And okay, this is the biggest one. So this one's really, really important. So I'm going to read it and then I'm going to explain it to you. So it says, we'll cherry pick listings and quick to move on. So what this means, a lot of these agencies are actually one-man shows. They're sole proprietorship companies. So one person that is now getting hired to send resumes and to find candidates for a company. So if you have a difficult job to fill, if your job takes certain specialties, takes a certain knowledge, you're wanting a certain amount of years, the more specifics that you want, the harder it is to fill that job. So since they're making the same amount of money, and it is a lower amount of money, and they only get paid when they fill that position, what that means a lot of times is as they're taking on new candidates, the more difficult the position, the lower it goes on their list of what they're going to work on, which means you might not ever really get candidates. You might not ever find somebody. So a lot of times, if you have a very easy job to fill, you're in a city or a market that has a huge pool of candidates, that's helpful. You're going to get more, it's an easier job to fill. You're going to have more candidates coming to you. The more difficult your job is, you might not ever get anything back. So what happens is you're waiting because you feel like I've delegated this task over to somebody else. But with no money down, what happens is they're not as invested in it and you don't get it back. So I think it's, Jason, I see you put up here, it's the most expensive free thing ever. And that is true when you have a difficult job. If you have a specific skill set, you need a certain caliber of salesperson, then this becomes, this usually is very timely if ever works out. If you have an easy job, then this is actually a pretty good option for you.
I 100% agree with that. I mean, as long as right now, if I was to ask you the question, you say, the great salesperson you're looking for, are you looking for someone that's, very goal oriented, someone that has a Rolodex, has a database? Are you looking for someone who's very fearless, someone who's like supercharged and motivated? Are you looking for someone who has the ability to, to sell at a higher price offering that you have compared to your competition? Do you have a specific market you want them to be in that might not be as favorable? Has it been, are there certain people that make it your organization, certain people that don't? So the harder the position is, this option won't work for you. If you have an easy position, then again, this option will work for you because again, this whole cherry pick thing is huge with these straight commission, low level recruiting agencies. And the reason why I say it's the most expensive free thing ever, because let me kind of share with you what a client of ours experienced, and that's this. And so they hire one of these low level recruiting agencies that's a straight commission. Thought it was a great deal, right? Because again, they only pay for performance. Well, they harassed them, every week. Hey, do you have anyone for me? Do you have anyone for me? Do you have anyone for me? 30 days later, no one. 60 days later, no one. 90 days later, they finally had that kind of tough conversation with the recruiting agency, and still just didn't have anyone for them. Didn't have the person they were looking for, that great sales professional, that great sales warrior. And so they finally decided to cut bait and then go hire a sales specific recruiting agency that was targeted and could go and get the exact person they want, a headhunter, to go kind of steal and capture a top salesperson from the competition. And but that was 90 days in. So then it took them 60 days later before they actually could hire that new person. So you could see we're 5 months in. Well, their quota was a little over $1 million a year, and they had forecasted revenue. They were depending on that salesperson to produce $1 million in their first year. Well, now they're 5 months in with zero revenue, right? So we could just kind of say it's an even $500,000. So you could see it's the most expensive thing ever because they end up having to spend, I don't know, $30,000, $40,000 on a full service headhunter to go find them the salesperson. But it really cost them $500,000 in unearned sales revenue. So it's the most expensive free thing ever. So we just got to be careful when we look at that.
I like that. And Jason, I think it's important to say too, who this is really good for. And I think this type of recruiting agency, if you are looking for entry-level salespeople on a massive scale. So let's say you're looking for somebody in a retail environment. They're going to have a salary with the commission. Their pay is going to be somewhere in the $50,000, $60,000 range. You're looking for lots of people. Let's say over the United States, you're looking for 70 spots you need to fill. This is a great way to do it because you need the masses. You need that. If you're looking though for somebody like you were saying that's going to have a $1 million quota, they're gonna have $1 million quota. They need to have a certain level of experience. They need to have a certain skill set. You're looking for one person. This is a tricky, this usually doesn't work, but there is a place that this does work when I'm looking for a lot of people that are more entry level or salespeople. Let me say entry level.
Good point. So that's actually a good point because I want to be clear that we've used these people. We actually recommend these people when it comes to that, like appointment setter positions or those BDR type positions. So if you've got a bunch of marketing leads and you need someone to call on those marketing leads and turn them into sales qualified leads and schedule appointments with your frontline sales reps. Well, this actually could be a really good option for you to go find, again, those kind of entry level callers that it's high turnover, right? They're not going to probably stay very long, but it's an opening for a person to move up to something else. And these people can really help you find that.
Yeah. And
that's a really good point.
Yeah. And if you're trying to fill an entire call center, which, I've got call center background, that's where I came from. That's where I cut my teeth. When you're trying to fill an entire call center and you need 100 people in there because you're opening a new call center, you need the masses and you need a ton of them coming in, and they don't need to be screened, 5 times before you hire them, give them a job. So this is a great option in those situations.
Good point. Okay. All right. How about number six? All right. So it's the general recruiting agency. So these are your headhunters that we go out there. There's a lot of pros with them in the sense they're knowledgeable of the hiring trends. It should lead to faster hiring, right? They got a lot of experience in this, which is great. Hire quality candidates by paying for these people because they are higher and more expensive. So you kind of pay for what you get with them, which is great. They take over the full hiring process, which saves you a ton of time. So it frees up your time to focus on more important things, like as a sales leader or an owner to do your main job. Work with your existing salespeople, coach them and help perform, not worry about all the hiring stuff. The database of candidates you won't find elsewhere. So again, these people have been doing it they really are a full service agency. They've been doing it for many years. And so they've got a huge database, right? Or a huge, I like to call it a Rolodex, which is the olden days. So a huge database of people and candidates they can call and poach from other companies. And of course, agencies, these agencies attract hard to reach job seekers because again, they know what to say. There's a reason why they're called head hunters, right? So they're there to go and hunt the person that is currently successful, someone else, and pull them in. We've had success with this. There are people in our organization that have come from, that are still here. Some of our top people have come from general recruiting agencies, and we definitely can recommend some top people for this. But what are the cons of this? What are the cons of a general recruiting agency?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of the time, they're not experts in the sales industry. There are most general recruiting agencies, they do not want to work within sales. They don't want to work within sales. Sad for all of us that we're out looking for salespeople because they say it's too risky, right? I can't figure out what's the right, how to decide and figure out whether they're going to be successful or not. These salespeople, they change and they move and right, they give us a bad rap, and so they don't want to work with sales. So they sometimes they will, but it's not their expertise. So occasionally you can convince them to find salespeople for you. They don't want to, they drag their feet. And again, let's just think about the mindset of things. When I'm going out thinking these people are high maintenance, they're not going to make it, I don't really want to work with them, this isn't my specialty. Are they able even energetically to bring in the best people? I don't think so, but that's my perspective there. Hiring process is not specific to salespeople. So a lot of them have a really, really great hiring process, but again, sales is different. It's just different. And so what is going to work in other industries and make them very successful there does not necessarily translate to sales. So some parts of it will, but not all parts of it. So again, not speaking that sales language. They're not part of your company. So we said earlier, your own internal HR department, they know your culture inside and out, and they're able to find that culture fit. And so of course, general recruiting agencies, something they do is they ask questions about culture and they do understand, but they're not in it. So they don't understand it to the extent that you would internally, of course. It's higher cost. This is expensive. A lot of times it is a percentage of the salary the person's going to make, somewhere around 30%. And so it's a very costly initiative to take on. And they may not keep up with hiring trends. What I mean about that is it seems weird. It's a general recruiting agency, but again, hiring within sales is very different. Even knowing that how many positions are open right now, keeping up with the changes in our base salaries, what are commission norms within different industries and trends? What is it like onboarding? Are people giving signing bonuses? What does that look like? Is there training pay? That is a dynamic force within sales as a whole, but also within different industries. And so if they're not keeping up with all of those nuances, then they're also, again, not going to be in rapport with the candidates that they're speaking to, and may not be able to give you the guidance that you need to know how to put together a package and an onboarding that's going to support this top new talent. Because if they're going out headhunting top talent, that top talent is expecting and has higher expectations than other people. And so making sure that they can be an advisor for you in that. They might be able to do it in other departments and other positions, but in sales, typically they aren't able to keep up with those nuances.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing, look, here's my recommendation, or here's my opinion, right, from my experience of using these people, is that I think they work really well with non-sales positions. That's my experience. So if it's a non-sales position, I feel like they do a really, really good job. I feel like they really struggle when it's a sales specific position. I think a lot because of what Mary said is that they're very comfortable. They're comfortable explaining, a chief operating officer. They're comfortable explaining, here's the salary, here's your job requirements, here's what you do. When it comes to sales, it's a base plus commission. And so there's that kind of uncertainty kind of pitch that needs to happen of, top producers make $250,000. Yes, low producers make $75,000. And so it's just kind of hard to for them to get their hands around that. And so they don't like that level of uncertainty. They like the more stability of the non-sales positions. The other thing that I struggle with when it comes to them, and I've used one of these for a sales position in the past, and when our company was younger, and it was like 35%, maybe 32%, Mary. You said 30% on average. I think ours was like 32, 35%. It was many years ago. But my biggest concern is that it was based on their total compensation. Remember this, Mary? It was based on their total compensation.
Oh, yeah,
so
I remember.
what happened is I kind of found myself almost kind of like hoping the salesperson succeeded, but at the same time, I was like, holy crap, this is getting expensive. Right? I started kind of like almost like kind of emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, energetically, I don't know what you call it, but I almost started like sending off like kind of like incongruent vibes to the salesperson because certain months they were crushing it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to cost me like $40,000-$50,000. And then other months they weren't doing so well. And I was like, oh, okay, it's only going to cost me like $20,000. That's not so bad. But I was like playing against myself, and it was just really hard to budget. I feel like I wasn't on their team because I want them to do well, but I don't want to pay 40 grand if they do well. It's just, it was messing my psychology.
Well, Jason, and you have to, if you take this route for a sales professional with a dynamic compensation, because it's based on commission, you have to go into it, which we didn't because we didn't understand this at the time. But if I were to do this today, if we were to do this again, I would go in and I have to go in creating my budget for the year and and with the mental state of this employee is not going to be profitable for me for 12 months. They're not going to be. So if your business can handle them not being profitable, because once you take everything they make, you take the 35% off that's going to the recruiting agency. And then you take whatever commission you're paying them that goes over it. And then if you have a salary that goes with it, you take that off. At this point, we've taken so much percentage away. They're not profitable. They cannot be. So you have to have a business that can sustain having a non-profitable salesperson for 12 months. And you need to also go in knowing, okay, I really need them to stay and work now for 4 years. So just as a business owner or as a hiring manager in sales, we need to know how long does somebody need to work for us in order to be profitable. And then take 12 months away, add 12 months to it and say, can I keep somebody for this long? And what is that going to mean? And you just have to go in knowing it for 12 months, they're not profitable. They can't be in this sort of program. But after that, but if they have found you a top person, we know they're not profitable. We can break even on them in 12 months. Going forward, they could be very profitable. You just have to weigh that and decide if it's worth it for you.
Perfect. Good. All right. Okay. Our final one, number seventh strategy is partnering with FPG. And we're going to be just as fair and balanced, so to speak, as we had with the previous options. We're going to share with you the pros, and we're going to share with you the cons. There are 100% cons of working with us, and we want to make sure that we're real clear on that. So here are the pros of partnering with FPG and our sales recruiting company. Again, we've been doing this now for over a decade as a training company, and we decided a couple of years ago to start a sales recruiting company, and that's because we felt like our clients needed a seventh option. Really, I'll be completely upfront with you. We didn't want to do it. We actually were like kicking and screaming wanting to do it, but our clients kind of kept begging us because of the other 6 options and how we kind of kept guiding them and telling them what they should do. And anyway, they finally just said, look, Jason, just create this thing, and you'll be in charge of all of our hiring because you got it figured out, right? So here are the pros. The first is the psychology of neuro-linguistic programming interview questions. So Mary and I are one of 2,000 master practitioners in NLP in the world. We spent thousands of hours to get this designation from the original gangster NLP society. And so neuro means brain, linguistics is our speech pattern. And what's been proven by science psychology is the way that we speak is a window into how we think, and how we think drives how we feel drives our behaviors, and our behaviors drive our results. And so we've designed a series of neuro-linguistic programming interview questions that tell us the mindset of a top performer. And we all know that top people, great salespeople, they just think differently. And the way they think, it translates through how they speak, right? So how they speak is literally a tell into how they think. And so we've designed these questions to understand that tell and our trained recruiters, they ask those questions and they have to answer a certain way, which is really cool. So we've actually kind of removed the bias of a recruiter, which sometimes I think happens a lot of times in the general recruiting side. So we remove the bias. They have to answer a certain way that is indicative of that top sales warrior mindset to move on. The next is a behavioral sales assessment that measures fearlessness, which is crazy. So we decided to partner with a third-party company that is really just to hold us accountable. So I interviewed a lot of sales recruiting companies before we started our own, and I tried to sell them this assessment because it holds people accountable to making sure we're hiring the right people. And they wouldn't do it. And they told me when I finally figured out the reason why they wouldn't do it is because it slowed their hiring process down. And I thought that was there's a lack of integrity with that. And so we want to hold our recruiters accountable by using a third-party assessment, because sometimes, the interview is wrong, right? Sometimes the emotions kind of cloud judgments, and so it gets it wrong. And so the assessment holds us accountable to making sure that we do it better. So think of it as like the Moneyball for hiring. I'm sure you guys have seen the movie Moneyball, and there really is some science behind that. Number 3 is we have trained ninja assassin recruiters skilled in the art of convincing the very best to work for our clients. So again, in today's economy, maybe not all economies, but right now it is a 1-to-1 ratio out there. And so you do not want to hire a person who's jobless. You want to hire a person who's already a top performer somewhere else. And so you got to have a trained ninja assassin that's going to cold call them and is going to convince them to leave their current company and come work for your organization. So they got to be trained in the science of selling and the words of selling to be able to do that. Also a 90-day onboarding program that's ranked number 2 in the world by Global Gurus. So we wanted to create a hat trick there, and that is not just hire the right people, but we also wanted to train them up in the way of the warrior. So what our organization does is that we have trained NLP writers that will work with your top sellers, and we'll take your language of selling, so how you sell your top people sell your product and service, combined with our 12-step 5-4-3 sales process. We co-create together the world's best sales process and script. Again, with our science and your art, your language, with our process, we marry it together. We create like the coolest thing in the world. And then we give that to your new hire and say, memorize this. Because remember, the way top performers think, say, and do is different than the way bottom performers think, say, and do. So we want to memorialize what the top performers say and do, and then teach that to your new hires to get them to ramp up very quickly. Also, we have a flat fee, so you don't feel you are getting punched in the gut by uncertainty with that percentage. So again, that was a personal thing that I wanted to do for our clients, because I experienced that, kind of betting against my salesperson because of that percentage. And I'm like, holy smokes, I'm about to pay 40 grand for this guy. That's crazy. So I didn't like the uncertainty from a budgeting perspective. And so I want to give a flat fee to make it very clean and simple. A company that started as a sales training company, so we really know what makes up a sales warrior. Again, most recruiting companies, right? It's just a name, it's a face, it's a LinkedIn profile. They'll throw them across the fence, hope they stick, but they don't really know, right? They don't have to eat their own dog food. Well, we do. So we have to train these people after we recruit them. So our trainers are constantly giving feedback to our recruiters and saying, hey, for some reason, Julie that you just recruited, they're kind of a dud, right? They're not really showing up. And so we get to analyze that and kind of figure out, what's working and what's not working, and make sure that we're always getting better, right? We're always getting better. And then one more thing, a performance guarantee. So our guarantee is very simple, and that is if our sales recruits, our sales warriors that we provide for you, if they're performing based on leading indicators or actual results better than half your existing people by day 90, then we consider it to be a good hire. If they're not, then we replace them for you for free. So, which we do not want to do because our profit margins are tight and we only make money on that first hire. So right now we're trending at about 80-20. So 20% of the sales warriors are not making it, but we're actually very proud of that number because the industry average is about the opposite, right? So besides us, it's usually 80-20 the other way. The 80% do not make it, are not performing. Ours are about 20% they're not performing. So it's a good deal. But those are the pros. I'm obviously biased. I'll try not to be, but so there are cons, Mary. So what are those cons?
There are cons. Time to speak some truth here. as well. We are not for everybody. We're not for everybody to be in training with us. We're not for everybody to work with us as a recruiting partner, or to be an employee of FPG, right? We're kind of polarizing, and that's okay. So here is the cons of working with us. So one, the 90-day guarantee is shorter than other guarantees. So you can find other general agencies that will give you a longer guarantee than 90 days. The reason that we decided on 90 days is because there is a correlation between the only date correlation that has been scientifically researched that shows what they are doing on day 90 is 80% equivalent to what they will be doing at 12 months. So if you're happy at 90 days, you're going to be happy at 12 months. If you're not happy at 90 days, you're not going to be happy at 12 months. So that's why we have the 90-day guarantee. But in transparency, there are people that will give you a longer guarantee than that. We have a retainer fee. So there is a required upfront fee in order for us to start working and going after and headhunting people for you. There is an investment that you make upfront in order to have us working on that. So there's a retainer fee. There's also, we cannot ensure a culture fit. So what we say that we can do is we can make sure that they can sell. They are going to sell. Are they perfect for your culture? Are they perfect for you as a hiring manager to work with? I'm not sure. So it is part of our process because you heard, I love the HR manager and the hiring manager having a say, and you can interview them, right? We don't say you have to hire this person, you get to interview, but that's on you to interview for that culture fit. We can't do that because we are not living within your culture. Warrior Selling 90 meant to train up or train out candidates. This means that in this first 90 days, they are in training with us, and they are in training sometimes days at a time, and sometimes they're in with us 2 hours at a time, every week. So this is it is a time commitment from them, and which also means it's a time commitment for them away from your company and what you have them doing. So they are with us a lot of the time. And with that, sometimes we find out they're not cutting it in the class. They're not learning it. They're not, you can just see maybe they're not putting everything in. A lot is asked of them and they're not doing it. So it can train people out for you that might have made it otherwise. And then we do have very specific processes and guidelines. So we don't, but there are things that definitely we want you interviewing and understanding the culture side. But if you say, I don't want to, this is going too slow, I don't want them to have to take an assessment. Sorry, like they're taking the assessment because we believe in it so much that it's that important. And so we do have processes, we do have guidelines. We do say, hey, when somebody says they want to interview with you, you need to interview them within 3 days. And the reason is, guys, there's 800,000 openings right now. If you don't interview them, they are going somewhere else and they are getting jobs. And anytime someone's not doing that, that's happening. They are going somewhere else. The top people, everybody wants them right now. And so we do also want you to follow those standards, moving quickly, interviewing quickly, having conversations with us. So it does add some time to your day. We think that that's worth it to make sure that you have the top salesperson, but it does take time.
Awesome. All right. So again, these are all great options. It all depends on how much time and money you have and budget you have to make it happen. They're all great options. If you would like for us to just do it for you and partner with us or have a further conversation around these different options, then go to fpgnow.com. And again, you can talk to one of our sales warriors to kind of guide you through the process. You can also get the slide deck, which might be helpful to share internally and talk about those pros and cons. We have done all of them. We have 100% all of them. And so we know the pros and cons of each one, which is why we also wanted to create the FPG recruiting side, because it just wasn't an option out there. And so I wanted to make sure that people had that specific option. At FPG, we've been helping businesses profitably scale since 2008. Remember 2008, Mary, that crazy kind of recession that people were going through? And we were creating, back in 2008, we were creating results producing sales machines inside those organizations. And that 2008 Great Recession, I just looked this up recently. It took out 1.8 million businesses. Isn't that nuts? 2008, 1.8 million businesses were taken out by 2008. And one of the reasons for this is because they didn't have a disciplined sales department, those machines to handle the uncertainty of the market. So at FPG, we've made it our mission to save as many companies and their employees' lives from any future negative circumstance while giving them an advantage over the competition. So we're currently in about 40 different industries in both B2B sales and B2C, and our Warrior Selling Training Program is listed as number 2 in the world, and our Leadership Sales Coaching Program is listed as number 1 in the world for sales leadership training, and that's beating out all of them: Sandler, Spin Selling, Solution Selling, Challenger. And I think it's just because we're practical, right? There's a lot of philosophers out there, but unfortunately, they don't last very long, because the ultimate sales warrior needs practical techniques in order to move sales forward during these uncertain times. And so again, if you want us to help you, we can do it all for you. Again, there's some cons of using us as well, and so we're definitely not right for everyone. But go to fpgnow.com, and again, you can sign up to speak to one of our sales warriors. The calendar is right there, so you can literally just book yourself right on the calendar, and they can talk to you about our successes as well as some challenges, and we'll see if we're a good fit for each other. All right. Again, this is Jason Forrest, and that is the amazing Mary Marshall Forrest, and we'll see you soon. Go sell something.